Hello, welcome to this video. My name is Milind Date and I am the expert tutor for the AFM examination. This video brings to you a special topic, and the reason being AFM being the strategic professional level examination, the students face certain unique challenges. And the effort here is to make students aware of what care they need to take when they're dealing with numerical and narrative aspects of the questions that are asked in the AFM examination. So I'm sure after watching this video, you would build the confidence that's required to have you prepared for your upcoming AFM examination. Once you look at this guidance, this video, you need to practice a couple of mock examinations to make sure that you implement my guidance during your mocks and therefore provide you with the requisite kind of level of preparedness to take on the AFM examination as such. So let us see what I am bringing through this video to you. As I said, dealing with numerical and narrative aspects of the question. In the AFM examination, which you know is divided into section A, wherein a 50-mark question is asked, and section B, where there are two 25-mark questions asked. Please remember that this is not a teaching video, and neither this video is going to focus on the professional skills marks for which you may get another video. So in short, I will be concentrating mainly on the other parts of the examination, sans the professional skills. So your technical skills, your numerical capabilities, and your power of expression in the discursive elements of the question. And my tips will be illustrated with the help of some of the past exams questions and also some of the questions from September-December 2023 sample AFM examination. I also would narrate some of the common weaknesses which, according to the examining team, are the areas which students should be careful about. So let's begin. How the numerical elements in the AFM exams are important for you to tackle. As I said, it's being a strategic professional level exam, it replicates the workplace environment for you. And you're therefore expected to demonstrate skills that are required at strategic level as an expert, including in an international environment. All the AFM questions, as you can see, typically would include calculations and discursive elements in both section A as well as section C of the section B of the examination. So whatever may be the case, you must take care of time management so that you would be able to answer all the possible tasks within a time period of 3 hours. The proficient use of response options in which typically include word processor and spreadsheets. Some of the spreadsheets are pre-populated, as I will illustrate to you after some time. I'll also illustrate to you how important it is for you to plan and structure your answers before you start typing your answers out. The importance of the use of formulae from the formula sheet, and of course, applying various spreadsheet functionalities to perform your calculations fast and accurate. Now, therefore, the calculations if you look at any of the past exams, could be there tested in two different ways. One, an exclusive requirement. You may be asked to, let's say, estimate the cost of capital of this organization. So it's a direct numerical element of the question. However, at times, and most of the times in the AFM examination, you will have to prepare your calculations in support of the discursive elements. So in this particular case, please remember, examiner is not specifically going to ask you to make your calculations of particular variables. It's for you to determine, considering the narrative requirements, discursive elements of the question, what set of calculations you would need to perform to support your arguments. And that's an essential point which many times students miss out. Apart from that, this being an advanced level examination, many times the information that is given to you may not be directly useful in performing your calculations. It will have to be against the backdrop of certain assumptions that you make, certain estimations that you make, or you may be required to make use of certain models like the Black-Scholes model, or certain approaches like the Modigliani and Miller approach. And of course, the use of various spreadsheet functionalities that will help you make your calculations faster and accurate. Do not take the FM carried forward knowledge lightly. Revisit those, concepts and make sure that you're completely confident about them before you start revising your AFM contents, which typically could be computation of certain financial ratios. Examiner can surprise you with a question on the assessment of financial performance and financial position of the company, maybe in section A or section B of the exam. Your ability to remember the calculations for cost of capital along with its element like cost of equity, cost of debt, cost of preference shares maybe, and the weighted average cost of capital. The basic, investment decision-making tools like net present value, internal rate of return, payback period, normal as well as discounted, the use of dividend growth model, the use of Modigliani and Miller equations, the use of purchasing power parity or interest rate parity for the estimation of exchange rates, and various valuation models that you may be making use of. So generally, when you talk about the three questions in the AFM examination, that will have a combination of calculations, discussions, and of course, demonstration of professional skills. Case scenarios certainly are much more complex and comprehensive as compared to your FM examination, and so are the calculations. Of course, the basics will remain same. What's crucial for you is to spot and identify relevant data points from the given information, because that's really challenging for the AFM students. And therefore, I very strongly recommend doing a lot of question reading and a lot of question practicing for developing confidence for this examination. You are aware that the questions could be based on any syllabus area, and therefore calculations that you need to develop logically must be kept in mind, so that your answers of all numerical elements would be very well structured and with supporting notes wherever required. It's always better to tabulate your answers in the best possible manner so that the marker can actually understand the logic that you have used in arriving at your numbers. Make the life of the marker that way pretty easy. So, the spreadsheet functionalities which you would have been exposed to during FM examination would become no doubt handy even when taking AFM examination. Remember the syntax. Of course, it is available to you on screen as well through the help and formula sheet tab, but enough practice would make you remember that very well. But you have to take certain care when applying the syntax in the examination. For example, for NPV, the syntax would be equal to NPV into bracket, the given discount rate, comma, the range of the cells in which the cash flows are calculated by you. But here, please remember, range should contain only cash flows from year 1 onwards. It should not contain cash flow for year 0, because the spreadsheet formula considers in calculating only present value of inflows from year 1 to the last, and then the initial investment you will have to deduct from the present value of these earlier cash flows to get the net present value. But that's not the case in IRR. Whenever you are calculating IRR, including initial investment, give a full range and then give your guesstimate of the IRR. That will help you. So these two things are very crucial for you to remember when you are required to calculate net present value or internal rate of return. MIRR, modified IRR, is an advanced tool that will be introduced to you at AFM level. Now again, it is very simplistic when it comes to using spreadsheet functionality to calculate MIRR, modified IRR. And the syntax is again pretty simple. Equal to MIRR into bracket, you give the range, a full range of the cash flows, give also the rate at which the company is getting financed, and the reinvestment rate, which would be invariably stated to you in the examination. So learn using this formula by practicing a lot of sums from the past exam papers. In the formula sheet, the functionalities that are mentioned and the formulae that are shared with you are really very, very helpful. The formula, among others, would include the proposition 2 of Modigliani and Miller model, will help you certainly to calculate the geared or ungeared cost of equity, depending on what information is available to you, of course. There's a formula for calculating asset beta, the capital asset pricing model that helps you to, again, determine the cost of equity, dividend growth model and the formula for determining the growth rates, the weighted average cost of capital, Fisher's equation, which is pretty useful to calculate the nominal and real rates of interest, the purchasing power parity and interest rate parity equations are shared with you, which help a lot in estimating the future exchange rates, the modified internal rate of return formula, and of course the model for Black-Scholes and call-put parity equation that helps you determine the value of either a call option or a put option. There is no use of rote learning these formulae, neither their components. You must know how to apply a particular formula and how to gather the numbers from the given scenario. And these numbers may not be available to you at one single point of time, place, but may be scattered throughout the scenario. It's always better for you to practice using spreadsheet to make your calculations. I've seen some students, making use of Scratchpad, but that's really very cumbersome and tedious. Let the marker see how you are calculating the numbers. There are two additions made by ACCA to facilitate students save time during the exam and come up with fast and accurate answers. And these two things are recently added: the Black-Scholes model in terms of a pre-populated spreadsheet, and the other that would be activated with effect from September 2024 examination, and that is a rearranged equation for the purpose of applying your Modigliani and Miller proposition 2 to determine cost of geared or ungeared equity. So what I'm going to do is first to look at these two additions that have been made, and I'll actually take you through the practice platform of ACCA and try and illustrate to you how this could be used by you in the examination. It's time effective and can be dead accurate, provided, of course, you have to take care that you identify each element of the variables used in both the formula. I'll tell you how. So the first, let me illustrate the use of spreadsheet functionality for Black-Scholes calculations. Because there was no question on this in September, December 23, I had gone back and used the September 2022 sample questions for that. And this is the basic information available. I have, of course, summarized it. This is not the way in which it is given in the examination question scenario, because it is all scattered. However, for convenience at this stage, I have plotted them together. There is some investment the company is considering in technology B, which has a present value of cash flows that are discounted at 12%. And the first 4 years cash flows are given to you. These are present values already. And the project has a life of 25 years. So the present value of cash flows from year 5 to 25 is also provided to you as 26.375 million. Initial investment, 34.6. And the NPV, which is already calculated for you, is just $29,000. Now, the additional piece of information tells you that, look, I mean, initially you may say, I am going to invest nearly $35 million and my NPV looks pretty marginal at 29,000 only. Should I go ahead with it? So this is the case where the concept of a real option is being tested by the examiner. The sentence further says that there's a need to, consider an offer to buy the project at the beginning of year 4 for 27 million received from Cairo company. So should the company find conditions not pretty good to keep going ahead with the project from year 4 onwards, well, it can sell the project and get $27 million back from Cairo company, as against only 29,000 NPV, that too at the end of year 25. And 25 years is a too big a period for you to have, which could be probably studied with a lot more uncertainties. To consider the valuation of this real option, obviously the standard deviation of cash flow has to be taken into account. That's given as 40%, and the risk-free rate of return is 5%. And therefore, the requirement that the examiner has asked you to do is estimated net present value of technology B project after considering the value of the offer from Keroco. Now, if you look, the NPV is already calculated, but this is without the offer from Kero company. You need to consider this additional information and build the value of a real option so that you can prepare your estimate of NPV after considering the value of offer from Kero. So I consider this that you would have already identified in the offer to sell is a put option, and I will have to use Black-Scholes model to calculate the value of put option, wherein the spot price would be the present value of cash flows that my company is going to forego from year 4 onwards to 25, and that is pretty simply the numbers that I am going to get from year 4 onwards. So I will have to take this plus this. So 29.863 is my spot price. For a put option, the exercise price is the price that I'm going to get from the Kero company, and that's directly given to me as 27. The risk-free rate is 5%. Standard deviation of returns is 40%. And because I'm going to sell the project after 3 years, it's a European style option where the time period is 3 years. Now, let me take you to the TestReach platform, practice platform of ACCA, and I'll illustrate to you how a pre-populated spreadsheet can be made use of by you to ensure that, Now here, this is the way in which the Black-Scholes option pricing calculator that's given to you. Now, we have already identified the values of spot price, exercise price, risk-free rate of return, time period, and standard deviation. So I'm just going to enter those numbers here. We had said that the spot price, that is cash flows foregone, would be 29.863 million. I'm likely to get 27 million from Keroco. The risk-free rate of return should be entered as decimals, please remember. Time period is 3 years, and standard deviation again to be entered as decimals. 40% is 0.40. And here are the calculations that automatically will get popped up. C stands for value of the call option, and P stands for value of a put option. So this is a relevant value for us. You can note that this is a pre-formatted sheet, so I'm not permitted to type anything, but this gets saved once you enter the numbers. Pull up this value and put it into your report, which you could be writing using word processor, and cross-reference it in the report, this input in terms of your working note as such. So the total NPV of the project of technology B could be this value of put option plus the 29,000 NPV without the option that was calculated. So this is how the spreadsheet functionality can help you to calculate the value of call or put option with the help of a pre-populated spreadsheet. Isn't it easy? Yeah, I know. What's going to be difficult is to identify the spot price and exercise price, especially because the other numbers are directly available. And depending on your knowledge about the variables like spot price and exercise price for call option and for put option, especially in the real option area, it's going to be very, very critical. So practice. That's the only way. You can imagine any numbers and input in the BSOP calculator to get your answers straight away. So that's going to be very, very useful for you. The recently added, as I said, going to be effective from September 2024 onwards, is the rearranged formula for proposition 2 with tax. You have been familiar with this formula. Now, what is done is actually they have juggled the same formula and come up with an equation. This we will call as left-hand side LHS, and this we will call as RHS. Of course, please remember, this formula will have to be used by you in a blank workspace spreadsheet. This is not going to be pre-populated for you. So for those who are taking September 2024 exams, must watch this very, very carefully. Because without that, you will not understand how to populate the numbers and then how to insert the formulae so that you will be able to calculate the cost of ungeared equity, based on which, of course, you can calculate the cost of geared equity of the company under consideration. So let's see what data do we have to perform these calculations. And here is a scenario that has been again taken from the past exam, sample exam, September 2022. Again, for the sake of simplicity, what I have done here is I have pre-populated the numbers directly for the proxy company. Proxy company's pre-tax cost of debt, proxy company's geared cost of equity, proxy company's value of debt and value of equity, plus the tax rate. Now, this is what would help us to get the required calculations using the rearranged equation of the MM2 proposition. So let me take you to the practice plan. So here we are. proposition 2 with tax using rearranged formula. And you can see this rearranged formula I have populated for our reference purpose. In the examination, you will always have it in the formula sheet. Now, the information that I had shared with you is already populated here. And in addition, for the scenario company, I have also plotted their capital structure, market value based debt and equity 50-50 proportion. And the pre-cost of debt is similar to that of the proxy company. Now look at the left-hand side, and I'll just put the numbers over here. It starts with KE, which is geared cost of equity. And geared cost of equity for proxy is given over here. You have to start with equal to, of course, geared cost of equity plus what? 1 minus the tax rate into bracket. So 1 minus the tax rate is over here, bracket complete, times KD. So multiplied by the KD, further multiplied by value of debt upon value of equity. So value of debt is this 240 divided by value of equity, which is 400. I have taken each of these elements and plotted them in the formula exactly as given to me. So I just press enter and I get this value. Now, right-hand side starts by, saying ungeared cost of equity, which we need to calculate, in fact. Ungeared K is not given, so we'll have to calculate that. Plus 1 minus T times KE times VD upon VE. So what we will do is take KE dash as common outside, and then remaining formula I will plot here. So what I'll start with is, if I take out this KE dash, then I get only 1 plus 1 minus tax rate, which is same for both companies, of course, bracket complete. Now this K is also taken out, and then what remains is VE and VD. So again, I take multiplied by this VD by VE. I have taken all the elements. I'll just press equal to. Now, I have taken KE dash, KEI out. So that will be on this side, and the answer would be given by left-hand side value divided by right-hand side value. So I simply take this LHS upon RHS. So that's 9%. Ungeared cost of equity is 9%. That's for the proxy company. Now I will have to calculate the geared cost of equity for our company, which means I take this ungeared cost of equity and re-gear it with the capital structure of my company. Now here I don't have to use the rearrange formula. I will straight away make use of this formula, because now ungeared cost of equity is straight away available to us. So what is the formula? I say equal to ungeared cost of equity, which is 9%, plus 1 minus T, 1 minus tax rate is again 30%, multiplied by KEI minus KD, that is ungeared cost of equity again. So I put this minus the cost of debt for our company, which is similar. And then this is multiplied by value of debt and value of equity, but now our company proportion. So 0.5 divided by another 0.5, which is practically 1. I've taken all the elements, I've just put enter, and the geared cost of equity for our company is calculated over here. This will let the marker know how you have calculated the cost of ungeared equity for the proxy company and geared equity for the given company case. This is a very, very helpful for you, because otherwise you would have been left with no choice but to make use of somehow the scratch pad, or keep juggling in numbers without any appropriate structure in the spreadsheet. With this way of populating the information in the spreadsheet, you could easily show all your calculations along with working notes and arrive at a clear answer. Now, this you could make use of in writing your report, and then make sure that you cross-reference it with this spreadsheet so that the marker understands how the figures have moved from one place. So how was this? I mean, this addition done by ACCA, which will be available for students taking AFM examination September 2024 onwards, I think it's a very, very important tool for you to make use of a spreadsheet to come up with the application of model as such, proposition 2 model. So let's now move on. Let me throw some more light on a 50-marker numerical question. And this I have taken from September-December 2023. Look at the requirement. I've directly taken the requirement because it's very difficult for us to go through the entire scenario in this case. So part A asks us to estimate project IRAT-based cash flows in pounds, and that's for 8 marks. And then estimate NPV in dollars, that's for 9 marks. Now, please read the requirements carefully. The first part has asked you to calculate only cash flows of an international project. And that cash flow has to be prepared in the denomination of pounds. Whereas the second requirement is calculating NPV. Now, here you have to convert the pound cash flows into dollar cash flows first by applying correct exchange rates, and then arrive at the net present value in dollars after, of course, considering any additional cash flows in dollars that you may have been given. So, part 1, only cash flows in pounds, not the NPV. A well-structured spreadsheet with appropriate columns and rows. Now, here again, let me remind you, you have to think through very well before you start inputting your tabulations. Reason being, once done, you cannot add or delete a column or a row. So you've got to be very, very careful. And when you talk of cash flows in pounds, you have to identify what sort of cash flows you will require to show at the minimum. Now, examiner has not told you that, but the information will be available. And you need to therefore first start by showing inflation adjusted contribution, the inflation adjusted fixed cost, the tax allowable depreciation, and also the taxes. Total 8 marks, therefore, would be divided into 3 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 up to this stage. So, operating cash flows. But then there are investing cash flows as well in terms of your initial investment, and also the working capital related cash flows based on initial input of working capital as well as the incremental working capital cash flows. That would carry 2 marks. So 6 plus 2 would give you all full 8 marks, provided, of course, you have considered the right relevant numbers from various parts of the scenario that may be given to you. And then part 2, what you need to reflect is first the conversion of cash flows to US dollar, taking the appropriate exchange rates, and then calculate the dollar NPV. Of course, you will have to show in working notes the calculation of various exchange rates, the US dollar cash flows, therefore, the additional tax element, a differential tax, which may be charged in the country where the US dollar is the currency, any transfer price that might be charged by the US host to the company abroad by supplying components to it, and the contribution that they earn on that, and then the post-tax NPV, which would total carry about 9 marks as such. It's always difficult for students, to address this kind of a complex scenario unless, of course, you know the logical process of developing your thoughts and then asking yourself to zero on what are the calculations that are involved. You need to take care to observe the correct exchange rates are used. So how the exchange rates are to be calculated, you might have been given some guidance directly or indirectly. If there is no guidance given and just the inflation rates in 2 countries are given, obviously it means that you need to use the purchasing power parity theory, applying correct rates for the base country and the counter country. Tax allowable depreciation calculations. One more thing, are taxes payable in the year in which cash flows arise, or they are payable 1 year in arrears? These are the things which are really, really very important for you to understand. A 50-marker question having 8 plus 9, 17, almost 1/3 marks for calculations. And you can score full provided you adopt a step-by-step approach in here as well. Let's look at now a numerical question, which is a shorter version, 25-marker question, section B of September-December sample 2023 examination. So the requirement is advice on hedging strategies based on hedging choices that the finance department is considering for loan of $24 million, assuming a certain central bank base rate going up to a certain level, and the investment of $18 million, assuming in second case that the central bank base rate falls. Now here, if you just read the requirement, you're not sure whether the examiner is really asking numerical question or not. But look at the sentence below that. Support your answer with appropriate calculations and discussions. Now, what you need to do is, of course, first of all, this question is based on hedging of the risks, financial risks, and interest rate risks. Highly technical topic. And lack of practice would necessarily mean that you struggle to understand the information given, number one, and therefore naturally answering the requirement fully. It talks about hedging choices. A careful reading of the scenario would help you understand that there are three choices likely based on the information that is available. One is FRA, second is the futures, and third is the options. And for each of them, what you need to find out is the outcome and then advise the company based on three calculations, which one should they go ahead with and why, because it's an advice. So a reasoned recommendation is the crux of the whole thing. So first of all, you must be technically sound on those three hedging tools, FRA, IRF, and IRO. But also, keep in mind the fact that there are two different scenarios in which you will have to apply those. One is a case of borrowing, and the other is the case where you are investing. So this is borrowing, and this is the case for investing. So a hedging strategy used by a borrower and by an investor is going to be different. This demands a very sound technical knowledge from your side, plus obviously, to be sure, a lot of practice from your end. So important calculations in this particular requirement could include decision whether you want to buy or sell futures, your calculations of the basis, unexpired basis especially. For options, you need to calculate the premium. And for each of these three categories, the effective annual rate of interest. And your advice obviously should be the one which brings down the interest rate risk for the organization. That's really, really very important for you. So please note here, students will just calculate and stop there. Please note, calculations are only to support your advice. So use the calculations done as an evidence when you are putting forward your arguments, recommending a certain action by the company. So this is how different areas of the syllabus can be tested, either by directly asking you to do the numerical calculations, or like in this examination, like in this example, the indirect way wherein you are told to support your answer with appropriate calculations. So what is appropriate? You will need to come up with. So after looking at how the numericals are done, how the two new additional support spreadsheet functionality is given to you, let's now shift our focus to tackling the discursive or narrative type questions in this examination. So, discursive questions, when we talk about, it naturally expects you to demonstrate expert knowledge about technical concepts, but that's not sufficient. Application to scenario is really important. So if you talk in terms of a 50-mark question, discursive elements generally would require you to write a high-level report, which is certainly comprehensive and could contain different parts of the syllabus. Please maintain appropriate balance between calculations and narrative elements of the answer. It has been seen and timely commented by the examiner that students struggle with calculations so much, they spend so much time there that there's no time left to discuss their points. And that can come because of lack of appropriate practice. Your answer has to be, the discursive element of your answer must have correlation with the number of marks that are available. Generally, the guidance, of course, is 1 mark per relevant valid point, but 2 marks for a very well-developed answer. So depending on the total marks available, you could decide how many points you need to make to get good credit. When you're writing the narrative answers, please ensure that you write in small paragraphs, which are suitably titled. Avoid repeat of points. Don't copy paste your answer from scenario, sentence by sentence, as is. No, then what is your value add? Don't copy paste. Don't mention only theory. What's its relevance? Apply it to the given scenario. And remember, AFM is all about strategic perspective. So you need to consider various assumptions, interpretation of the data as well as information, and considering all sets of information given to you in light of a requirement. That's really very crucial for you. Requirement verbs. Level 3 verbs are generally used at AFM level. Analyze, evaluate, advise or recommend, assess, discuss. Please refer to the article written on the exam verbs by ACCA. Understand the components of each of these verbs and make sure when you're building the answer, you actually make use of those pieces of knowledge. Let's look at the guidance for one more discursive element of the 50-marker question. The first 2 parts we had seen in terms of calculations. Part 3, evaluate the impact of marketing director's alternative exchange rate assumption on project's NPV, recommending whether or not project should be accepted, and that's for 6 marks. The key word here is, of course, evaluate. And unless you understand evaluation, your answer will not be fully satisfying the needs of the examiner. What you have to evaluate is the impact of certain exchange rate assumptions that the marketing directors have made on the NPV of the project. And then, based on this evaluation, recommend to the organization whether or not the project should be accepted. So a key word, as I said here, is evaluate. What it means you need to discuss arguments for and arguments against the marketing director's logic of using certain exchange rate related assumptions. And for each of your argument, you must provide enough support as an evidence, and that will be available to you from the information given in the scenario. So the context here is again the alternative exchange rate application. Alternative rate application assumption is the word used by the exam. That means there must be some other assumptions as well. Only careful reading of the exhibit can help you understand this. Because the impact on NPV is asked, there may be some additional NPV calculation under two different sets of exchange rate, because there are different sets of assumptions of determining exchange rate. Now, here also, please remember, examiner has not indicated that you should do a numerical calculation. But as I said earlier, numerical calculation may be required, and that is what you need to identify from the wording. If impact on NPV is required, and previously you have already calculated an NPV with one set of exchange rate assumptions, to understand the impact, you need to calculate or recalculate rather the NPV again by taking the alternative exchange rate assumption. So here, supporting calculation is required. And in discussions, you could talk about if exchange rate predictions should be done based on the purchasing power parity or based on the trends reflected in the historical rates. Argue for, argue against. There is a lot of information available in the exhibit. You could also make use of the government that has announced incentivizing foreign investments, which actually could strengthen the pound or weaken the dollar scenario. There is a reference in the exhibit on the predictions made by different analysts. Naturally, more the number of analysts, there will be a lack of consistency in the predictions done by each of them. So that is what you need to really comment on. And therefore, students who don't prepare well, don't practice enough, they will always struggle with the AFM and may not pass this examination. In the remaining time from now onwards, till the AFM examination date, please make sure that you make use of the insights given by me today and make yourself confident in taking the AFM examination. So in summary, I would expect you people to demonstrate strategic level of knowledge, and not only knowledge, application in an international scenario that will be shared with you. Key elements are advanced investment appraisal, business valuation, mergers, acquisitions, and the risk of currency and interest rate, which you need to manage through hedging. You therefore must be able to reflect upon very sound understanding of the impact of the outcomes caused by various assumptions, estimates, and changes that are likely in external environment, which of course will be listed and given to you as a part of information. So that is what I wanted to bring out very clearly in this video. And I'm sure after watching this video carefully, you would develop confidence. And if you do a lot of practice taking the advices from here, I'm sure why you should not be able to pass AFM examination. So all the very best for your revisions and your upcoming AFM examination. Thank you very much for watching this video till end.